Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head up to Gothenburg in Sweden once again, which as I've told you many a time is probably the beer city when it comes to Sweden, and we're going to revisit a brewery who I've reviewed a couple of beers from now, and I've had some very good experiences with them in the past. So we're going to return to Bearded Rabbit Brewery and we're trying another different style today. So this one is called Black Hops. It's a black IPA and it comes in at 7% ABV. So the last beers that I've tried from Bearded Rabbit, I think one of them was a wheat beer. I'm sure I've had either an IPA or a double IPA from them before as well, and I also had a stout which I was really quite impressed with too. So looking forward to trying something that's a little bit in the middle of the stout and the IPA. And you know, the black IPA is an interesting style because there's not that many breweries brewing them anymore, which is a little bit of a shame. There was a big craze surrounding this style a couple of years ago, and of course that seems to have been dropped in favour of the kind of hazy New England type IPAs these days. But definitely looking forward to this one. As I said, it's a brewery I've had good experiences with in the past, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Bearded Rabbit before. No doubt I will add some more in the near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course is a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Bearded Rabbit then. So as I mentioned to you earlier, Bearded Rabbit Brewery are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg as you'd say in Swedish, and they started out as the kitchen homebrewing experiments of Teresa Mortensen and Fredrik Gustafsson. So they started brewing in January of 2013 with just a very small 25 litre brew kit, but they went on to brew around 80 different varieties of beer in their kitchens. But apparently Teresa has a bit of a thing for beards and moustaches as well, and this, she said, had to be incorporated into the name of the brewery. And at the time Fredrik had a pet rabbit, and using an animal name was also quite common when it came to actually naming craft breweries, so they decided to settle on the name of Bearded Rabbit. But they've since become a commercial brewery, and they've hired a few different people to actually help them out with this. So they've hired Fredrik, Göran, Patrick and Johan, and they've basically, you know, they've been doing a lot of festivals and things like that in the meantime. They took part in the Gothenburg Beer and Whiskey Festival recently, the GBG Beer Week I think they've taken part in as well, and they've been taking their beers to various different places around Gothenburg of course as well. They brew most of their beers. They are still a contract brewer from what I understand, so they've brewed some of their beers at Beer Bibliotek. I think they've brewed some of them at West Coast Beersmiths as well, formerly known as West Coast Brewery of course, and also Electric Nurse. But they do hope to have their own brewery at some point in the future, but from what I gather they are based currently in the southwestern part of Gothenburg. So I'm not sure when they will actually open up their own brewery. Hopefully it's fairly soon, but as I said, these guys produce some pretty nice beers. The stout that I had from them before I was really impressed with. They seem to be experimenting a lot with different IPAs and things like that at the moment, and they seem to be going down really quite well. So hopefully I can review some more beers from these guys in the future, but this was a brewery that I really wanted to revisit, and when I saw they had a black IPA, it's a style that I think has kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit in recent times, so I thought, you know, I have to review this one on my return to Sweden. So yeah, that's all you really need to know about the brewery just now though. Check out the brewery website in the description below, and you can follow them on Facebook as well. But let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself. So yeah, I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open it up. There you can see there's the rabbit on the top with the moustache. I'll just make sure the camera's focusing on that. There you can see black hops. All of the Bearded Rabbit beers incidentally have a very similar design to this, just different colours and shapes and things like that. On the back here it said this is a black IPA. The hop profile is piney and citrusy with subtle notes of chocolate and coffee from the black malts. Bearded Rabbit is based in Gothenburg, Sweden. We aim to deliver a world-class taste experience by brewing exciting new beer with high quality. This one of course is a 33 centilitre, 330 milliliter bottle, 7% black IPA. There is the bottle cap that you're going to find from these guys. If I remember rightly, all of them have that kind of nice black with pink rabbit on it, but yeah, not much else to say about that. So without further ado, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. I did notice that the bottle is pretty full, so that's probably a little bit more than 330 millilitres actually, so thank you to Bearded Rabbit for that. So let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Oh, there we are. It's getting a little bit excited. That's the only problem if you fill it to the top. Yeah, this is going to be a bit of a pain, this beer, I think, to pour, but we'll just let it settle. We'll just pour it slowly. So, with this beer, when you open it up, you really can smell a little bit of the nice kind of fruity, sort of resiny notes out of this. We'll just see how quickly that is actually going to set. I might have to pause the video and just edit it a little bit, but you can smell some of these nice, lovely fruity notes out of it. In terms of the colour of the beer, you can really see it's a nice sort of dark ebony rosewood colour. There's a massive head on this one. I would say it's probably around, it's probably a kind of nice dark sort of beige fawny colour. It's somewhere in the middle of that actually, but you can see this head is just fading away quite nicely. But let's see if we can get a little bit more in and just see how we get on. I think it's going to be a little bit of a pain though, this beer. And it's not doing too badly. We'll see. Yeah, this one is going to be a little bit of a pain to pour, unfortunately. I maybe should have opened this guy up before we started the video, so I'll pause it just now and we'll come back to it in a little bit. Okay guys, apologies for the edit there. We just had to get this beer out and actually let it settle down a little bit. So let's take a closer look at the aroma with this one then. So yeah, on the aroma, it's quite interesting. There's a nice little bit of a kind of roasted black malt to this one, which is what you would expect with the style, of course. There's maybe a little bit of a kind of chocolatey note to the beer as well. There's almost a little bit of a kind of brown breadiness to it as well. There's definitely a little touch of kind of brown sugars in there, or something along those lines. Yeah, definitely a little bit of caramel in there, but it's quite a well-fired caramel, if that makes sense. But black malts, little bit of bready quality, chocolate as well, definitely. Some brown sugars, as I say, quite well fired more than anything else. And there's a nice little bit of fruity quality to this one. You can pick up a little bit of a grapefruity note to it. There's definitely a kind of hint of a sort of reddish fruit, like almost a, maybe like, it's not quite strawberry, but a little bit of a kind of candied fig or something like that, maybe prunes, but there's a little bit of an almost blackberry aroma coming out of the beer too. Definitely a little bit of an earthy hop. You can pick up a little bit of earthiness to this beer, and there's some sort of grassy and earthy notes to it as well. So there's quite a lot of interesting things going on in the aroma of this one. The fruity notes do smell quite interesting. There's a little touch of sharpness to it. Not quite tart, but just a little bit of a sharpness in there, which is quite interesting. As I say, it's quite a ready fruit quality that you're getting out of this one. So as I always say, just take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But let's have a taste of this one then. So this one is the Black Hops, a black IPA. It's 7% ABV from Bearded Rabbit Brewery, a contract brewer or phantom brewery, however you want to call them, from Gothenburg, Göteborg here in Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål. Yeah, that's a pretty solid beer. I mean, is it better than the other ones that I've had from them? I'm not quite sure on that actually, but in terms of a black IPA, is it solid enough? Yeah. For me, the black IPA is an interesting style. I've said this in numerous reviews that I've done of black IPAs. Personally, I think you really get the best out of a black IPA when it's up in the kind of 8, 9, 10% region. You know, you put a little bit more caramel in it, just give it that little bit more complexity. This one for me, the roasted black malts are kind of, you know, they're the things that are sort of dominating the flavour of this one. This isn't one of the more complex black IPAs that I've come across, but it is, you know, it's quite a solid beer, this one, I would say that. Yeah, so with the malt base in this one, it is pretty much what you'd expect. There's a little bit of roasted black malt, that just kind of blankets the middle of your tongue. On top of that, there's a little bit of the kind of bready quality that you expect. It's almost a little bit of a kind of brown bready note, and as you go further and further into the aftertaste, the roasted black malt qualities just kind of push their way out a little bit more. In the middle of your palate, there's definitely a little bit of that kind of chocolatey quality coming out of the beer. There is almost a little bit of a kind of coffee smoothness in there, but I'm not quite sure if it is a straight up coffee bean. It's quite a the sort of coffee elements that are in this one are really quite roasted and well fired actually, which is quite interesting, to be honest with you. Yeah, I mean the roasty black malts in this one, there's a good bit of complexity into this. The thing I've always thought about the black IPA is that you need a little bit of sweetness in there just to balance it out. This one is definitely a black IPA that leans towards the roasty, toasty side of things. It doesn't quite have some of the sweetness that I personally quite like from the style, but there's a lot of people who do like that roasty, toasty side of the black IPA, but for me, you just need a little bit of that sweetness. There's nothing wrong with the beer, don't get me wrong on that. This one just isn't quite to the taste that I quite like for this style, but it is a pretty nice beer in that regard. The way that the coffee notes come out in this one, I think, in particular, is quite nice, but there's a little bit of a chocolatey sweetness there in the middle of the palate too. But it's interesting because I was picking up some brown sugary notes in the aroma of the beer, but they don't really kind of come out in the flavour, which is interesting as well. On the hoppy side of things, back corners of the palate, there's a nice little bit of a roasted earthiness there. That actually does have a good little bit of bitterness to it, and as you come further forward along the sides of the palate there, the earthiness smooths out a little bit, then it just gives way and you get quite a kind of resinous quality to this beer. It's not quite a spicy floral aromatic note, it's got a little bit more dankness to that. There is a good little bit of a kind of floral, like a sort of piney resin quality to this beer, which is interesting. So yeah, nice piney resin to this one. It does become a little bit floral as your mouth adjusts to it a bit more, but round the very front curve of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of a lighter kind of grassy note. As you go further into the aftertaste of this beer, it does become that little bit more grassy, I would say. And then of course behind the front curve of the palate, that's where you get that little oily bubble where those nice juicy fruity esters really start to come out of the beer. So with this one, it's quite interesting. There's a little bit of that, it's got a good bit of a kind of red fruity quality to it, but at the same time there's a little hint of a kind of grapefruity note as well. The grapefruit, you can feel that just kind of blanketing the front part of your palate. There's a nice little bit of a kind of grapefruity note there, like I'm saying, and as you go further into the aftertaste, it evolves a little bit. I think there's a little touch of a kind of blackberry or blackcurrant in there, which is interesting, and there's a sort of pruny flavour too. Maybe, I don't know if there's a little bit of a figgy quality or something like that to it, but it's got this nice juicy, slightly reddish fruit quality to it, which is really quite nice actually. I have to say, the fruity side of this beer is really nice, and I would say that as you drink more and more of this beer, the sort of harsh, it's not quite harsh, that's too strong a word to say, but that kind of well-fired roastiness that this beer has, it just mellows out a little bit. This is maybe one that it just takes your mouth a little bit of time to adjust to more than anything else, but it's a good beer, and to be honest, you wouldn't expect anything less of Bearded Rabbit Brewery. This one is, as I say, it's just one of these black IPAs for me that leans a little bit more towards that roasty toasty side of things. I like my black IPAs just to have a little bit of caramel in there to sort of sweeten up the malt base a little bit and balance that a wee bit more, but for me, you know, it's a solid enough beer, this one. But yeah, the fruity notes are nice. I wonder if there's a little touch of an orangey quality in there or something. There is something in my mind that's just telling me there's a little bit of orange in there too. So I think grapefruits, you can definitely pick up a little bit of that darker grapefruit flavour. On top of that, a little bit of orange, and then as you go further and further into the aftertaste of the beer, you start to get the blackberries, the black currants, maybe a little bit of a figgy note and a kind of candied red fruit as well. So it's an interesting beer that's got a good little bit of complexity to it, but like I say, in terms of the black IPA, just leans a little bit more towards that kind of roasty toasty side of things. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I'd say it's on the lighter end of mid-bodied. Carbonation on this one, you could see when it came out, the carbonation was a bit of a thing. So the carbonation on this one is quite active for me, but you could see that. Obviously I think they just filled the bottle a little bit too much and it went a wee bit crazy. But the carbonation in this beer is a little bit active. Probably with the fill, if you took the fill down a little bit, I think it would be okay. The overall mouthfeel, it's quite a smooth mouthfeel, this one. It's not oily and it's not creamy or anything like that. It is just a nice sort of smooth mouthfeel to the beer. Good little bit of hoppy bitterness to it. Nice bit of roasty bitterness from the malt base as well. This beer, I think, is quite high in terms of its IBUs. I would guess maybe around 70, maybe even pushing 80 with this one, because the malt base is contributing to that as well as the hops. But there's a little touch of sweetness in the malt base. It could do with a little bit more in my opinion, and you've got a nice little bit of a juicy fruity quality as well. But overall, it's a nice beer. It leans a little bit towards the roasty toasty side of things, a bit too much for me. And compared to how I quite like the style, I really do think you get more out of the black IPAs with just a little bit of kind of caramel in there, and if you take them up to the imperial strength as well. But for those of you that like a nice roasty toasty black IPA, I think this one really will hit the spot. I mean, you can tell it's a very good beer, and you shouldn't expect anything less from the Bearded Rabbit Brewery as well. And you know, I would drink this again. I'd be interested to try it on tap and just see it with a slightly smoother mouthfeel. Maybe the carbonation is affecting it a little bit as well, but overall it is a nice beer. I wouldn't hesitate to drink it again, and this is definitely one of the Swedish breweries that you want to check out. Another one of the, you know, the really good breweries that you're going to find up in Gothenburg. So let's leave it at that just now. So this one was the Black Hops, a black IPA at 7% ABV from the Bearded Rabbit Brewery, one of the Phantom or Gypsy breweries, however you want to call them, in Gothenburg. So a nice beer, and I recommend that you have a go at it for yourself. So until the next time, Slange just now, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Let me know your own thoughts on this one in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Bearded Rabbit as well. Make sure you check out my social media, and make sure you try some of the Gothenburg craft beers. There's some really, really good beers coming out of that city at the moment, and Bearded Rabbit are one of a number of breweries who are doing some great stuff. So until the next time, Slange just now, and I will catch you guys very soon. The Black Hops Black IPA from Bearded Rabbit Brewery in Gothenburg here in Sweden. Skål!